How's it going? Welcome back to Simply Minis. If you haven't been here before, my name is Jason, and this channel is dedicated to the KLX110 chassis. Anything I can possibly help you guys with, any information I can give you to inspire you to maybe want to build bikes, go out and race, and enjoy this community. You don't even have to be the fastest guy out there to have a good time. You don't have to have the nicest bike. So if anything, this channel is more to inspire people or show you that it's really not that hard to build a full mod. It's nice to maybe have eyes on how a full mod goes together, or actually see up close how the things bolt together and what you really need to make things happen. People ask me for walkthroughs pretty often of some of my bikes. This is one of my favorite bikes, one of my cherished bikes. It has a pretty rare frame on it and some rare parts. It just has a lot of really top-notch parts that make it kind of a special bike. The reason why the graphics aren't my graphics is because I actually bought this bike built, and it's got some history behind it, so I really don't want to mess with the bike itself. I'd rather leave it kind of how it is. I might change the graphics and maybe take these plastics off and tuck them away somewhere and put a new graphics set on it. And if I do that, I'll make another video of this bike. And if you want to have something fun to do on the weekends and you like ripping dirt bikes, then this is what you need to do it. So let's get to it.
So I think what we should start with is the frame. That's probably the coolest part on this bike. I found this bike in Minnesota. It was an old for sale ad that I had found online, and I jumped on it because I wanted to message the guy and just see if by some slim chance he still had this thing hanging around. Now, the frame that's on this bike is what's called a Billetware Pro Sportsman KLX110 frame. It is 1 inch longer. The foot pegs are 1 inch lower, so you got a little bit more room on the bike. Definitely, if you're a bigger guy, it feels more mid-size-ish, but it's not that much bigger than like a traditional full mod KLX 110. Now, the frame is lighter. That definitely feels nice on this bike because KLXs are pretty heavy. So this bike definitely feels better than your traditional frame KLX 110. The ergonomics on it are a little bit better, and the actual head stem tube angle is different. So it does ride a little bit less, or I should say more stable than a traditional KLX 110 frame. It's just got better geometry, in my opinion. But if you look right here, you'll see that there's nothing here. So on a traditional KLX 110 frame, this is filled in, and this double pipe design is not really how they're built. So it's a cool design. It's definitely very neat. They did a good job on it. All the brackets for everything, like for fenders and everything, they line up really well. The motor mount is separated, which was pretty cool. Try and get the best view I can in here for you guys. I didn't really want to take the plastics off because then mid-video I'd have to toss them back on so that the bike wouldn't look just like a naked bike. But you can see back here there's a lightened frame. They definitely chopped out and lightened some of the frame so that they could get it lighter than a traditional KLX 110 frame. Now, I know the paint's missing off the spring, blah, blah, blah. It needs to be taken off and it needs to be painted. I just haven't gotten to it, and I'd rather enjoy the bike than worry about a little bit of paint on a spring. So that's not perfect, but it is what it is. You guys can see it in all its glory right there. Ooh, Jason's got a rusty spring. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. Keystone Cycle Parts, shout out to them. They support me and my YouTube channel, and they support the Planet Minis Facebook page. Great company, great guy that runs it. I would, if I'm going to spend money, it's definitely going to be with him. So just a little shout out to him. Back to the frame. As you can see, it's all light in there. Aluminum subframe. Really neat design. They did such a good job with this frame. They really did. So that's the frame. Let me see if I can go to the other side. maybe I can get you guys a little bit better of a view over here. You can see that they did actually make the provision to bolt an aftermarket oil cooler on it. So that was neat. Oh yeah, you can see a little bit better here. There's the entire motor mount, which is pretty beefy. There's the Billetware logo right there. Then you can see a little bit more as to how they lighten up this frame back here. And on the bottom, it is actually a cradle frame. One of the only KLX110 cradle frames that I'm aware of. Obviously, if you've raced KLXs before, you know that the foot peg bolts like to rip out of the bottom of the case and damage the cases. Well, this completely prevents that issue. So foot peg bolts in between that and the motor, and that just that bolts all together there. Pretty nice design. So the next thing we'll go to on this bike is the motor. It's really nothing special. It's your typical KLX110 155 stroker motor. I know there's not a kickstart on it right now. It had a BBR kickstart on it. I took it off because those are getting a little hard to find, and I didn't really want to damage it because sometimes, obviously, as I wanted to show you, there is a decomp valve on this head, which is rare. You cannot find this anymore. Really neat. So when you kick it, obviously the decomp valve comes back out and it starts up. But when you're in the middle of a race and maybe you kill the bike or something or whatever, I'm not worried about that decomp valve. I'm just kicking it, and I didn't want to destroy my BBR kicker, so I would rather just run a stock kicker, to be honest. But back to the 155 stroker. It's a TB Parts 143 cylinder, TB Parts V2 old school head, and a Two Bros 155 stroker crank. It's got a VM26 on it. That is TB Parts intake manifold that works with the VM26 on their head. It's a Takagawa die-cast cover with a 6-disc clutch piece in there. Now, I've talked about this before. I'm going to go back over it. I have a 178 stroker that actually runs the original 5-disc KLX110 clutch basket with the die-cast cover. So I'm running a stock clutch basket, and it's actually held up to my 178 stroker, and I'm 225 pounds. So if you keep fresh clutch discs in it and, you know, steels and fibers, I really believe that the 5-disc can hold up. So if you don't want to dish the extra cash out for a Takagawa cover and the 6-disc basket itself for more power, they say that you really should use it anything over like a 155, I believe, probably even a 143 to be honest with you, but they say you should use it. I don't really think you need it. This one is a 6-disc. Does it perform better? Yeah. I mean, does it hold better? Does it not eat clutch discs as fast? For sure. No doubt in my mind. But maybe just a little piece of advice for those guys who are maybe trying to save a little bit towards the clutch basket area and just want the look of the nice KLX110 Takagawa cover. You can do that, and it will work. So just some food for thought. Now that we've gone over the motor, there's nothing really special in there or anything to really talk about other than that. Let's move on to the front end though. So this front end is a little bit special. I've never actually seen a KLX110 with TriStar Zoke clamps on it. Now, I'm not really sure where these came from. They could be maybe KX65 clamps that somebody made a custom stem for. I've never seen them on another bike, so unfortunately, I don't really have that information on them, but I do think that they are super cool, and they definitely have a little bit different geometry than like a Marzocchi clamp for sure, because they just feel different. But, man, they are slick. The forks are your traditional KLX110 Marzocchi fork kit. They have black lowers, nice little hole shot device. Man, does that make a difference. The hole shot device is definitely something, if you're racing a full mod, that I recommend. That can change your hole shot experience 100%. These KLX110 Zoke kits come with a FABA hub. Now this FABA hub can be used with the factory brakes that come with Marzocchi forks. They're made by Formula. In my opinion, they're garbage. It's a stationary caliper, so when they started getting packed with dirt, it pretty much just stops working. So what a lot of people do is they'll convert over to KX65 brakes. So this is a KX65 front caliper, and then there's actually a bracket made here, and this bracket that the caliper is bolted to allows the caliper and the bracket to be bolted to a KLX110 Marzocchi lower lug. And then factory, they come with a 180 millimeter rotor, okay? So in order to adapt it to this brake system, you have to get a 200 millimeter rotor. Now there's some companies, Gaffer being one of them, they make this adaptation rotor that is specifically for a FABA hubbed Zoke front end for a KLX110 that somebody is trying to adapt KX65 brakes to. So you order this rotor, you get yourself a KX65 caliper, you get this adapter bracket, and there's some companies that still sell them. You got to sniff around on them. If you go on Planet Minis, you can definitely find some for sale here and there. There's a company named DMC Motorsports. They sell those adapter brackets to get this caliper on here. So that is, you know, in a quick way, KX65 front brakes on a Zoke front end KLX110 bike. That's how it works. That's how you make it work. There's a couple of tricks to getting, if you are using like a KX65 wheel instead of the FABA wheel, there's some tricks to getting it to fit with the KLX110 axle, which I'm going to go over in another one of my videos. The full mod video that I am doing, the full mod build from the frame up, is going to show how to fit a KX65 hubbed wheel instead of a FABA hubbed wheel. So this system actually works really nice if you can find all the parts. Sometimes these rotors are out of stock, sometimes they're hard to find, but in that light, this at least gives you an idea as to what you might possibly need if you are trying to convert your front end to KX65 brakes on a full mod. The bars on this bike are Renthal 611s. Not really a common choice of pit bike bar. They were on here when I bought the bike, and I don't have any qualms with them, to be truthful with you. And so the Bark Busters, I get a lot of heat on these. Some people don't like them, or they'll say, why do you have those on the bike? Just heads up, it's actually got a Supermoto setup too. So it has a 12-12 setup with a street tire for the rear and a street tire for the front. And these were used in the Supermoto setting. Now, I'm not going to take them off. I actually like the way they look. Some people don't, some people do. I mean, if you don't, well, I guess they don't float your boat then, but they float mine, so we're going to leave them that way. The blue seat, I don't really like the blue seat. I kind of want to upgrade it and maybe put like a black and gold seat on it. Black and gold's my thing. That's generally the colors that I tend to go towards, but I definitely want to get rid of this seat. So now that we've talked about the front end and the frame and the motor, let's talk about exhaust choice. So on this bike, it being a 155 stroker, you definitely want one of the bigger bore pipes. Now CHP has always been known for having nice big bore pipes and not having it stepped from here to here. Some people like it stepped. Some people think it makes the bike faster or tune easier or whatever, you know. That's neither here nor there for me. I just put the pipe on the bike. If it runs good, hell yeah. If it doesn't, get another pipe. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. The CHP, this exhaust is loud. I mean, it is louder than probably any exhaust I own, I would think. It's very straight through, and it is a large diameter pipe. It's pretty. I definitely wish the can was a little bit shorter, but yeah, I'm missing the spring. Again, don't judge me, but I'll show you. It sounds good, but it's straight through. Anything that's loud usually makes power. I mean, it's kind of the way it is. You want more flow, the more air you move that the motor can take in, and the more exhaust it can push out. That's how you go faster. So In my opinion, this is one of the best exhausts for this bike, or I would run this on a 178 stroker, just like I would a Yoshi. RS2, that's another very nice big bore exhaust that works better on larger motors, no doubt. Let's talk about rear brakes. On this bike, this is a Two Brothers pedal, brake pedal, and this is a KX65 OEM rear master cylinder. The way that this has been adapted onto the bike, so this mount is actually for a KLX110 just stock frame. Normally you drill the frame and you find where you want the master to be and where it's going to work with your pedal. And what I mean by that is your actual foot pedal height compared to your foot peg. Nobody really likes the pedal up here, because then if you do have your foot forward, which I understand you're not supposed to, that's not proper riding position, but if you do, the foot brake can be dragging. You can run into a situation where you have to hold your foot up to even use it, and that can be really, really annoying. So when I build my brake setups, I always put the foot pedal on there. I put it where I want it. I find something to prop up under it so that it stays in that exact spot. And then when I drill the holes for the master, I make sure that I mount this master in a spot where I'm like basically right in the middle of the adjustment on the actual clevis. So that way, when I get this on here, I do still have some movement up and down, and it's generally in the area I already want it, because there's only so much adjustment in this. So if you screw it up and you drill in the wrong spot on the frame, it's just not, it's not a good time. I mean, nobody, who likes doing shit twice? Not me, not nobody. But this frame has an actual steel piece that bolts between the frame here, because there is no frame there because it's lightened. So this one, I have this steel piece on here, and then basically it's mounted through that, and the steel piece is clamped on the frame. That is how I made it work on this bike. When I got it, this brake setup wasn't as nice as I'd like it to be, so that's kind of what I came up with to make it work, and I had to move it around because, like I said, the pedal was high, and I do not like that. For the actual rear caliper itself, this is, oh boy, I need to change that bolt. Don't judge me. Okay, let's move on. This rear caliper mount right here itself is, I believe, an old maybe Sick Tendencies Racing caliper mount. I'm not really sure. It was on there when I got the bike. Like I said, most of this was built. But the rear caliper is just a KX65 stock rear caliper, and this actually has a stock KX65 rear rotor on it because it is running a KX65 rear hub. Now, rear hubs are a little bit easier to get them to work because you can really just use bearing spacers to make the hub sit centered and make your chain straight, and the alignment of the chain to the actual motor itself and the counter shaft. So this part's not as hard as making a KX65 wheel work with a front end, but KX65 hubs and wheels are very strong. So people, you know, usually opt for that if you're gonna race in the full mod world and you want the stuff to actually last. Let's talk about the peg bar. This peg bar is made by Kinetic. Kinetic's a newer company. They are not an older company, but they make a really nice peg mount bar. It's straight. So if you're a tall guy and you want a little bit more space on your ride, the Kinetic MX straight peg bar, not upswept, straight. The straight works great. And these are, what was this company called? They're like DRC, I think it's DRC foot pegs. It's a steel foot peg. They're relatively cheap. They're like 40 or 50 bucks. They're really grippy. They work awesome. You can get them on eBay. I believe like T-Bolt sells them. Maybe even Factory Mini Bikes sells them. I'm not 100% certain on that, but you can definitely find them around. Those are KLX110 mounted, just regular KLX110 mount DRC pegs. So if you have been debating a foot peg and you don't want to spend the money on, you know, Evo pegs or Fastway, you know, Fastway Evo pegs, these are a great option to choose. And I run them on my mod bikes because foot pegs get torn up and people hit them and there's all kind of stuff. So I really don't always usually dump the coin in that area to upgrade the foot pegs. Now let's move on to this rear swinger. This particular swinger is definitely one that is sought after in the pit bike world. It's a really nice design. It's got the separated mount, so it doesn't have issues like a lot of these style swingers have of cracking the actual swinger on the underside of where this shock mounts. So that separated shock mount really helps transfer some of the, you know, impact, obviously, and doesn't allow it to crack the swing arm. So this particular design of swing arm is very strong. I haven't had any problems with it. There's been some fast guys on this bike that I let ride it. I've never had an issue. It's never shown any signs of fatigue or anything like that. The machining on this swing arm, as you can see, is just out of this world. I mean, the provisions for the clamps, for the brake lines, everything is just, it's really nice. It's got a nice fat Delrin chain slider on it over there, so like that doesn't wear down every 10 minutes like a lot of these swingers do. This particular swing arm setup uses a Fox podium shock. Now, you're not going to see too many of those, which in my collecting of KLX110 pit bikes, I have never owned a KLX110 podium shock. But I will tell you that in my personal opinion, this shock feels better than an Elka shock. I don't mean that in any bad way, and I'm not talking bad about Elkas. I think that Elkas are fantastic shocks. But this particular shock, I wish I could find more, because I can tell you right now that I would have more, could I find more. I'd buy them up for sure, have them rebuilt and use them, because they're fantastic. The rebound on it is solid. Its valving is solid. It really has a pretty wide range of soft to hard, which is nice for heavier guys, because typically we want harder than most people want, obviously, because we're carrying more weight. So that is the swinger setup on it. And we are going to flip around to the other side, and I'll show you the dress-up kit that's on it, and whatever else I can find over there. All right, now we've flipped over to the other side. I don't have a full dress-up kit on here right now. When I race, I don't like having this particular dress-up cover on. These dress-ups are hard to find, and people charge crazy money for them. I mean, there is some serious money in the pit bike world. And dress-up kits are just one of those things that if you have a rare dress-up kit, somebody's going to pay big money for it. This has a P&Co dress-up kit on it. Pretty rare dress-up kit. I've actually don't know if I've ever seen one for sale. This bike had it on it when I bought it. I got really lucky. It had the tappet covers, everything. Cam cover, bottom tappet cover. It does have a CHP chain guard. I'm not sure if P&Co actually made a chain guard. I do have the P&Co ignition cover, just not currently on here. But as you can see right here, it does have the shaved starter boss. So the cases were taken apart, and those were welded and made so that you wouldn't have a starter boss in your way. And a lot of people, what they like to do when they take that starter boss off is they like to turn this carburetor around backwards, and they run the filter back here. And it might, allow you to run some bigger carburetor options that aren't going to interfere with the front fender. So that's kind of a cool little mod that you don't see very often. Definitely something interesting. That was kind of like one of those, woo, holy grail mods, But this is the only bike I have that has it. These cases are actually bored to be able to accept bigger than a 155. So you could go to 165 or 178 or 195. I mean, you could run any piston you want. These cases are bored to maximum value. That's something to talk about. A 143 cylinder bike, which with a stroker crank is a 155. A 143 is basically the biggest piston that you can put in a stock set of cases. The skirt will actually hit the cases down here if you run any bigger than that. So the 165 kit, you have to bore the cases out. That is 100% positive thing. If you've looked into it before, I can tell you for sure that it is true. And to run anything more than a 165, you are definitely going to have to bore the cases. BBR used to make an old 160 kit that could be ran, well, without case boring. That used to be the biggest thing that you could run without case boring. Now currently it's a 143 because nobody makes a 160 kit anymore. So shifters, when I do run an aftermarket shifter, which honestly I prefer stock shifters just because they don't dig into my foot. I'm not really sure why I like stock shifters. Not many people do, but I do. But when I do run a shifter, I run a BBR shifter. Like I said, this bike gets ridden. You can see it right there. A lot of people don't ride their mod bikes. I don't know why you'd buy bikes and not ride them, to be honest with you. That doesn't make too much sense to me, but I do ride this bike, and I do really enjoy it. It does have a CHP bump start on it. This will allow you to start it in gear. Say you kill it at the track. It basically will allow you to run and bump start it, more or less literally what it's called, bump start. So you could start it in gear, so you could run with it and then pop the clutch and it will start with the stock. Bump start in there, or with the stock, whatever you want. Neutral safety switch, I guess you could call it. You have to be in neutral to start the bike. So it won't work without something like that. Now, it also has, I didn't really show this, but it also has a Two Brothers oil cooler. A lot of people ask, like, do I really need that? Like, is it really worth it? Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that, like, an engine running cooler isn't better for it. I mean, I think that we all know the answer to that question. The question of, do you have to have it? Well, no, because my 178 stroker doesn't have it, and, I mean, I've put in tons of racing time without it, and I've never had an issue with my motor or had anything overheat or have any problems that are related to something like that. So do you have to have it? No. Is it something cool to have? Definitely. I mean, look at how sick that looks in there. Sick. Super sick. But this is one of my cherished bikes. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I can definitely do walkarounds on all of my bikes. Depending on if you guys watch this and you like it. If you don't like it, leave a comment and say we would rather watch you do, how to build videos, any of the how-to videos or anything of the other things you do. If you have any suggestions on videos you guys want me to do, drop them in the comments. Let me know what you want to see. I pretty much build all these things from the ground up, unless I find them and I can find them built and built well. I'll buy the bike and I'll kind of change it into what I want it to be. But like I said, this one is a little bit different. It's an old school bike, and it's special and it's rare, and I just not so sure I want to even mess with it. If you like the video, like, subscribe, share it with your friends. The more interest that I get in this stuff, the more that it allows me to do it or inspires me to want to do it. Hopefully I'm going to have the full mod video part 2 out soon. That takes a little bit more time. I want to make sure everything's right and that I'm handing out the right information. But thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.